Hey, this is Evan Longoria of your San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is TortureCast.
It's Thursday, September 6, 2018, and this is episode 152 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. And I'm your host, Chad King, today, and joining me, once again, is Eric Nathanson. What's up, dude?
Not much. I was thinking about last night and kind of how I thought it would have been cool if the Giants had given up a 4-home run game.
Mm-hmm.
They had one positive thing, the Ray Black coming back, Ray Black against Trevor Story at the end there. It was, I don't know. I was just thinking about that right now. So it made me smile. Something about the Giants season, Black getting a Story out made me smile. How you doing out there?
Good, man. Got a new puppy. She's at my feet. And I did see that at Bat by Story last night because I missed most of the game, but I watched the last couple of innings and saw Ray Black come in and get Story out, so he didn't hit his fourth home run. They applauded him, gave him standing ovation after he struck out. But what a weekend he had. He had 5 bombs against the Giants this weekend. So it was just a giant killer. It really was the difference. It was the difference in yesterday's game, and it was the difference in game 1 of the series, in which the Giants came all the way back and led 8-7 before they won 9-8. The Rockies did. And Story hit 2 bombs in that one. So it was all in all a very frustrating weekend. I mean, excited for Rockies fans, I guess. I don't know what else to say.
They're in first by a game and a half now.
Yeah, and I was going to say the only silver lining I can see out of this series is the fact that the Dodgers did not take over first place. I mean, the Giants are not laying down. None of the players want that to happen. They're always out there fighting. So that's never going to be the case. But as far as a Giant fan perspective, if the season comes down to, the Rockies winning the division, which I don't think they will, to be honest, but if they did and they won over the Dodgers by 1 or 2 games, I'd be like, hey, well, at least the sweep prevented the Dodgers from winning the West. Oh, that's not a good way to think about things, though. That's the point where we're at, Eric, with this season.
Well, the Rockies have never apparently won the division, I think I saw in a piece today.
Yeah, they got in the wild card, right? When they're 2005 when they got to the World Series, right?
7.
Oh, 7, sorry. 7.
Yeah, and I think they got a wild card another time and lost to the Phillies or something like that. It'd be kind of nice to have the Rockies can thank the Giants for that. The Giants went 1-7 at Coors Field this season.
Yeah, they did not play well against the Rockies. No. I mean, Coors Field is always just a hellhole, and Kruk and Kipe always talk about it in their pregame and postgame show, and just like they hate that place. They love it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. They say the people are so nice. It's just like a Midwestern mentality, and everyone treats them well. Beautiful skyline, sunset, the whole thing. And it's weird baseball there, man. It's weird baseball. You hit it 500 feet. What? Story hit 505 feet? What the F, man? I know it's thin air and elevation and all that stuff, but still, 505 feet, that's a man shot.
It was impressive too. It really was. I think it's kind of kitschy that all 3 home runs this Story hit yesterday were off of Suarez, and each one was like unique in its own way. You see how he fell over on the first one, and then the third one was just basically a regular, old home run. But that 505, I couldn't believe that. It didn't look 505, but how am I to judge how big those stands are? Because it cleared the entire bleachers out in left field there. I mean, you could tell he got all of it. I mean, apparently it's the longest StatCast era home run, and longest at Coors Field then, obviously.
Yeah, no, that was an incredible home run, and it cleared the bleachers, like you said. And, the bleachers go up at an angle, so it's hitting at a shorter distance than which it would have traveled if it hit the ground. That's what the computers project. So like if there were no stands there, it would have a little bit of extra horizontal distance before it hit the ground. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I guess that's how the math works or whatever. But it was just a bomb. And yeah, the one he hit while he fell down on his face, and you're just kind of like, what? But that's what the Giants are dealing with this year. It was another unfortunate series, which again they could have won game 1 in the series. They did lead with 2 innings to go. They came back with the home runs, the back-to-back pinch hit home runs.
Yeah, that was a cool moment.
8th inning or whatever. That was great, and that was Chris Shaw's first hit and home run in the major leagues. So and it put the Giants ahead. So yeah. And he said, that's something you always dream of as a kid is hitting a home run to put your team ahead late in a game, and it happened. But unfortunately, Tony Watson got dinked and dunked, and they got a couple runs and shut it down. And Suarez, of course, had his issues yesterday, and then Derek Rodriguez in game 2 was fine. He pitched very well in Coors Field, which is something to say, and the bullpen gave it up. So it was kind of a microcosm of the season, and it's unfortunate. But the Giants now, of course, are sitting back in 4th place like they've been for a while at 68 and 73. They're 5 games under 500, and that's after losing 5 in a row. They had climbed back up to 500 and then lost a couple in a row against the Mets and then 3 in a row against the Rockies. They are now 10 games back of Colorado. Not that matters right now. They are out of the race. Colorado is in first place by 1.5 games over the Dodgers. So, like I said, maybe the only silver lining is that the Dodgers didn't overtake first place. And the Giants, of course, are 3-6 since we last recorded. Hey, they were 3-1 at the start. So they were doing well. Actually, was really excited about it. It started out so promising, and I was thinking, we're going to record Monday, Labor Day, and we got a puppy, and long story short, I thought we were going to have good things to talk about, but they decided to lose 5 in a row, and they won 2 out of 3 against Arizona, lost 2 out of 3 against the Mets, both at home, and then went on the road and lost all 3 to Colorado.
That Arizona series, it seemed like, okay, the Giants are going to play the role of spoilers here. They're going to – and back then they lost Steven Duggar, dove into second base trying to get back after a hit and dislocated his shoulder or something and had to have surgery. That happened since we last recorded at the beginning of what felt like, good series versus Arizona. The pitching was doing fine again, and it looked like that they were going to step up and play the role of spoilers. And after the week they had, it looks like they're just trying to screw Arizona since they're getting their ass kicked in Colorado.
Yeah, it was interesting because I did see a lot of Giants fans going, why are they losing to Arizona? Arizona's in first place. Let's let them take over. No, you can't have that mentality. It's a silver lining after the fact. But the Giants need to play the role of spoiler now. They're going to be playing a lot of good teams coming down the stretch, including the NL West, but they go on the road here, or they're on the road here, and they're going to be playing a couple of really good teams coming up. So the Giants don't have an easy schedule to close it out. And you brought up something pre-show, which I thought was interesting. The Giants have not lost or had 2 or back-to-back losing seasons in 10 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it seemed like it. We went back through it, and I think, not 11, 13 and 17 are the only 2 since the run of World Series started. So that's... Yeah,
and they last lost or had losing seasons back-to-back in 07 and 08. And here we have 17 and maybe 18. So unless the Giants pull this out of the mud, they're going to finish under 500.
Yeah, they need to. 9 more losses, and they're going to be under 500. They had it. They were on the quest for 69, and they were at 68 and 68, and then they totally fell apart and lost 5 straight. And 5 games under. This is their worst record of the season so far. So it's kind of like they're definitely going to. I guess you shoot for 80 wins at this point. San Diego's the only bad team they play the rest of the way. I mean, they've got Milwaukee, Atlanta, Colorado again, St. Louis, and the Dodgers.
Yeah, so all really good teams.
Yeah, they have a tough schedule. Everybody in the NL West has a tough schedule. I actually think that if the Diamondbacks it'd be cool if the Rockies come out with it. I know that sounds weird and sacrilegious, but the Giants are 2-17 the last 2 years at Coors Field. 1-8 this year is what it is.
Oh.
I mean that's horrible. That's just so bad.
Yeah,
and
1-9 last
divisions.
year, 1-8 this year. That's just
Yeah.
completely swings divisions. I mean, last year, of course, didn't what the Rockies got in right with the wild card. With Arizona. So, yeah, that helped them get the wild card, being so good against the Giants, and it may help them again this year, either the wild card or the division.
They're not that bad against any other team in baseball, and they're actually pretty good against the West. They're 11-8 against Arizona. They're 9-7 against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Where are the Padres? And they're 8-5 against the Padres. It's Colorado that they're 5-11 against. It's the only team that beats up on them. So
yeah,
I say good for the Rockies because I always feel like the Giants are the older brother of the Rockies because they've always been managed to be the team that kind of kicks them down. I don't know, over the years it's felt that way. Like the Rockies feel like they can't get past the Giants. I don't think they have that same feeling about the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It always seemed to be that way. So if the Rockies can pull it out and not the Dodgers this year, that'd be some fun Schadenfreude. Is that the word?
Schadenfreude, yeah. No, anytime the Dodgers. I mean, look, the Dodgers have won 5 divisions in a row, 5 NL West titles in a row. So, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, so 5 in a row. Yeah. Hey, if we can break that streak, that's all good with me. It'll prevent them from getting that ring once again. We don't have to push it to Game 7 of the World Series like they did last year. Thank you, Houston, for doing that. So we had Steven Duggar, unfortunately, with that bad injury, which he had surgery. We did talk last Monday about Buster Posey going under the knife, and apparently that surgery went well, and he's recovering. Hopefully he'll be ready for the season opener. He may miss most of spring training. It's a 6 to 8 month recovery, but he says everything's going as planned right now. And then the big one, of course, is Andrew McCutchen is no longer a Giant. He is now in pinstripes and shaven like a baby on his face.
So
man,
weird.
those pictures looked weird, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any of us has ever seen, except for child photos, a picture of Andrew McCutchen without any facial hair. So that was very odd.
He said when he shaved it, he held his son, his 9-month-old son, Steele. He said he held him while he shaved so his son would know it was him when he didn't have the beard on anymore.
Oh, that's a good idea. So I don't have the names of the guys that they traded for right now. Sorry, I didn't prep that, but you might have that.
Yeah, it's right there. The second baseman, Avellino.
Avellino. Mm-hmm.
He's been in the Yankee system for 7 years, but he's 23. He's a middle infielder, like an Alan Hansen type, apparently. He's on the big league roster now because they needed to find a spot for him so he didn't get snatched up in a Rule 5 pick after the season. And a right-handed pitcher, Juan DePaula, who's 20 years old, and he hasn't pitched past the A-ball yet, so you don't really know what you're getting out of him.
Yeah, Avellino is the guy that they pushed for. I know that. And his stats aren't too bad in the minor leagues, so we'll see what he does in the big leagues. He's only 23. He's got some time to mature. Hopefully the Giants get something out of it. I know they contributed a little cash to the remainder of McCutchen's salary. And, he's guaranteed at least one playoff game, it looks like, at this point, unless they have this crazy free fall. But it looks like they've locked up at least a wild card. So he'll have one game maybe against the A's. But, hey, look, I'm happy for McCutchen. He wasn't going to be in the playoffs this year with the Giants. They had him for a 1-year deal, so he was kind of a rental. And, now he's a rental for the Yankees, I should say. So, I hate the Yankees with all my heart and soul, just behind the Dodgers. But if he does well for the Yankees and they go pretty far, I'm happy for him, just not happy for the organization.
Yeah, I actually hate the Yankees more than the Dodgers, and I feel bad that that's the team he went to because I can't root for him. I loved Kutch. He was very accessible. He was good to talk to. He had good karma in the clubhouse. The players genuinely seemed to like him. He seemed to enjoy the area. I could see if he wants to explore coming back on a cheaper deal, but any other organization, and I'd be pulling for him. I hope the A's beat the Yankees. So.
Yeah, no, that's the hard thing is that he did go to the Yankees. That was like the one team in the American League I did not want to see him go to. Obviously, he wasn't going to be traded to the Dodgers. That just wasn't going to happen. So it was like the second worst team, or the worst team that was available, I guess, I could say. There's always a chance that the Giants could get him back again next year, but I don't know. It's probably a long shot considering their luxury cap and what they have on the books, but anything can happen. It's ironic that he led the team in home runs when he was traded and runs scored and RBI. So and his average wasn't too bad. I mean, he's not the Kutch of old, and he's not the MVP Kutch, but he was a good Giant this year, and he was wonderful in the clubhouse, like you said. And I asked him a couple of questions during the season preview media event or whatever, and what really struck me is his charisma. He was in that room, in that suite, and that's the only time I've ever seen him and talked to him and heard him talk. He just was very engaging, had wonderful stories about how he courted his wife, just really personal things, and he'd answer every question, tell stories. I mean, he's a guy that there's no doubt he would be fun to go grab a beer with. He just is very engaging, he's a fun man, and he's very engaging. So sad to see him go, but we'll see what the Giants can do. They do have Longoria, for a while, for a few more years, and him and now
still leads in home runs. Him, Longoria, and Gorky's all.
I was about to say Longoria and Gorky's now are all tied with Kutch for the team lead, and I guess Gorky's is the first player since 1980 something, I think, for the Phillies. I can't remember who it was.
I can't either. I knew the name at the time too. Darn it!
But he's the first guy in 30-something years to have 15 home runs or more in a season after which he had no home runs with a minimum of 300 plate appearances. And that's crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah. He had no dongs last year, and this year he's tied for the team lead. I was like, and he's not taking steroids, I'm pretty sure, but so I wonder what changed. But he's been, a big help to the Giants. And to be honest, he'd have more than 15 home runs probably if he was being played more. But he hasn't. His playing time has diminished significantly in the last couple of months.
Yeah, well, I also don't want to be a downer, but anytime Gorkys Hernandez is tied for your team lead in home runs, you're not a very good baseball club. I hate it.
I know. When Kutch was traded, that was before Longo and Gorkys hit their 15th home runs. So I forget who it was, but they tweeted out, number of teams without a player with 15 or more home runs. Giants. That's it. That was it. 29 teams had at least one player with 15 or more home runs, and the Giants did not. And so we know that's a huge problem the Giants have had this year is hitting and power. So it's a bad thing.
Well,
so let's
one of the guys.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the guys they brought up because of that McCutchen trade, Chris Shaw. They are looking to provide that power, and he did that Monday with his home run as his first hit. Mm-hmm. And then Aramis Garcia came up on the same day, earlier in the week, but made his debut as the same day as Shaw, and he homered in his debut. That was a fun time. Garcia the other night, I think it was against the Mets in that 7-0 game where they scored 6 runs in the 8th inning. Garcia led off the inning with a homer, and then he drove in another run. It was a nice night for like young kids of the Giants. It was that glimpse of the future. There's people out there to still help them even though they don't have Kutch.
So you have a little bit of a note here about the August recap in terms of stats. It looks like their pitching wasn't too bad, which we've talked about. In fact, I think since June 1st, as of a week ago, the bullpen had the best ERA in the major leagues. But it looks like their hitting was kind of the problem this month.
I mean, 217 as a batting average. Their OPS was 594. Less than 4 runs a game, 13 and 14 they went during the month of. They only had one winning month this season. I mean, if you want to look why they're going to have a losing season, when it averages out, a little below mediocre. But their pitching staff, look at that, 3.26, fourth best in the NL during August. And you said it. I think the bullpen was on another 5-game streak with no runs before they gave up the lead on Monday in Colorado. So even the bullpen, though they give it up once in a while, they're still pitching well. The Giants' pitching is not the problem. It's been the offense this entire time. I think over their last, the 9 games since we last talked, they were averaging 2.9 runs a game. And that's with a 7-run and 8-run game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the hitting has definitely been the weak spot this year. I know social media, you see people talking about the bullpen all the time. And I know it's highlighted because they lead the league in blown saves. And they do have these monumental collapses by the bullpen. But they seem to be episodic in the sense of when the bullpen holds the lead, no one talks about it. But when they blow it, it's magnified because the Giants play close games. And that's the problem, is that they don't blow teams out. So you have a lot of teams in the major leagues, they'll win 3 out of 4 games by 3 or more runs. And so the bullpen doesn't really become a factor, even if they give up a few runs here and there, because they don't lose the lead. But when the Giants, have their bullpen come in more often than other teams, they're up by 1 or 2 runs. And when they blow that, 1 save or even 2 saves in a game, it's just magnified. And so that's why I think people think the bullpen is worse than it really is statistically. So we have to give them a little bit of credit in that regard. They definitely need to clean up a few things, but overall, I would still say the bullpen is better than average, because they are. They truly are better than average. It's just, that's a lot of pressure, man. Their bullpen just is coming into stressful situations more often than other teams, and that's the huge problem. And it's because of lack of hitting.
They're 24 and 25 in 1-run games. So what is that? 49 1-run games. And I believe the 2-run game stat is like 70 at this point. 76 or 77 of their games have been 2-run games, and then like 2 games under 500 in that regard. Mm-hmm. So when you're not scoring the runs, every little sliver is amplified. It's almost like playoff baseball, Every run matters, and during the Giants season, every run matters. So they're in a position where they're having to play spoiler, so they call up guys like Ray Black comes back, Kelby Pierce Johnson's back, Casey Kelly, Steven Okert is back in the bullpen to lengthen it out when they are getting their ass kicked. Ryder Jones and like I said, Avellino joined the big club too. So they said they're done with the September call-ups. These are the guys they're going to play with. There's no extra outfielders to look at. This gives Kelby some time. It gives Crawford a chance to get some time off. Avellino might start a game somewhere, but Bochy will try to field a competitive lineup generally, since the Giants are playing so many good teams down the stretch.
Yeah. No, it's good to see these guys come up. It's the fun time of the year when your team's kind of out of it. You get to evaluate some of the talent that might be on the roster over the next 3 or so years. So it's good to see these guys. Ray Black came in and struck out Story like we were talking about.
So fun.
It was fun because, he just was pumping fastballs. And it's funny because the subsequent batters, he was trying a lot more curveballs. But one thing I have to say about Ray Black is that even though he hit a couple at 101, I swear to God, he does not know where that ball is going, man. He is just, you just watch him pitch, and it's just like way up, way down, way inside, way outside. Oh, there's a strike. Way up, way down. I mean, he's a guy, he has so much talent, so much velocity, and he has a great curveball. If he had any modicum of accuracy, he would be devastating in the majors. Absolutely devastating. And I don't have any fix for him. It's very obvious that, Nick Hundley or Garcia was actually catching last night. He's just like almost sweating back there, like, okay, where's this coming? Oh, that's up. Oh, it's down. He's calling for spots and he's missing it entirely. But, some guys get ramped up for that 100-mile-an-hour fastball and they swing out of the zone. So, you can get away with some of it, but if he could dial it in a little bit, he's really going to be effective. I just don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's a 9th inning guy or he's just like the 8th inning guy that you bring in the close games to get it to your 9th inning guy. I don't know if that even makes sense, because I like to see the fireballers more in like the 7th and 8th when you're going through the heart of the lineup for the 4th time or something like that. I don't always like the idea of saving a closer for the 9th inning. I like bringing your best pitcher in the situation against the best hitters on the other team. Yeah. So I'd like to see him used in that kind of a role, and the Giants can keep going down the line with closer by committee if Smith and Melanson and I guess Watson in effect work out like that. Still Strickland, God, they still are the same guys. Ray Black pitching to to Trevor Story and like Garcia hitting his home run and Shaw hitting his and like the parents' reactions. Those are like the reasons to keep watching Giants baseball during September this year, even though they're definitely not going to be in it, because it's fun to see those guys that we think will be the future. That's why it's so frustrating that Duggar got hurt. Like, I really wanted to imagine Duggar and Shaw out there in the outfield. I've said it on the podcast all season. I want to see Shaw. And then he finally gets the chance. And yes, the guy has struck out like 14 times in 18 at bats.
It's been a lot. It's been a lot.
It's been a whole lot. The Giants as a team have struck out a lot lately. Their last 7 games, they've struck out 10 times or more. Last 7 straight. It's the third time this season. They've struck out 10 times in 5 or more straight games.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not good. And the other one was during the losing streak where they went through like Philly and Pittsburgh. So it's always the offense. That's why it's fun to see like the young guys contributing like that. Shaw, when he hit that homer, it's the farthest homer hit by a Giant since Brandon Belt like 3 years ago at Coors Field.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I did
like
not
even max shots, anything like that. Shaw has the longest home run hit by a Giant in the StatCast era, it looks like.
Well, you know, we have the tendency of this year might be the first year, I think it's almost guaranteed now, that the major leagues are going to have more strikeouts than hits this year. And the Giants, if you look at just them, they back that up. They have 1,260 strikeouts this year and 1,174 hits. So,
wow. That's a big gap.
It's about 86 or so more strikeouts than hits. And that's bad, Eric. I mean, come on. That just...
That's how baseball is now, though. The problem is the Giants don't have the power that other teams have to balance out the strikeouts.
No, they don't. That's the thing. You look at all the other teams that they have the 4th most strikeouts in the National League. The Brewers, starting with the Padres, have the most, then the Phillies and the Brewers and then the Giants. And all of those teams, of course, have more strikeouts than hits. If you go down the list, the Diamondbacks have more strikeouts than hits. Dodgers have more strikeouts than hits. Colorado Rockies have 2 more hits than strikeouts.
Wow.
The Mets have more strikeouts than hits. This is going in descending order of strikeouts, by the way. The Marlins have more strikeouts than hits. Then it gets to the Cubs. They have the 10th most strikeouts in the National League, but they actually have 90 more hits than strikeouts. The Cardinals have about 22 more hits than strikeouts. And then the Reds, actually, that's kind of surprising. They have almost 100 more hits than strikeouts. So, and the last few teams here, the Reds, the Nationals, the Braves, and the Pirates have more hits than strikeouts. So, I mean, more than half the teams in the National League have more strikeouts than hits. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, part of it is funny. I noticed a lot of NL West teams on that list of more strikeouts than hits, like the D-backs and the Dodgers, and they have more power to compensate. But also kind of goes to show how good the pitching is in the NL West. You know, that's part of the reason that 3 teams are fighting for the division lead, and their record isn't as good as, say, the Brewers or the Cubs, because they have to keep playing each other, and it's just so evenly matched with the pitching that goes around. Yeah. You know, L.A. has Hill, Kershaw, Arizona has Greinke, and not Godley, what's Corbin. Colorado, I don't know, that Marquez guy that pitched the other night, he was phenomenal. I don't really know who they have pitching. I guess Freeland is decent. I'm not even sure. But the NL West, it just, you know, there's such good pitching. It's part of why the Giants' offense sucks so much, but that's an excuse. It's just it's frustrating when you watch it. It's funny, I was going to mention the strikeouts are why Shaw is going to probably continue to platoon with Pence. And it's a way for the Giants to keep giving Pence starts and say goodbye towards the end of his season. Because who else are you going to put out there? Mac's gone with a concussion. Since Duggar's gone, you got to cover center more. So there's Blanco and Gorky's to do that. Slater has been playing a lot of right field. So hopefully they'll keep platooning Pence. The season's over. Let the guy enjoy his last few weeks as a Giant.
I agree with you because we're going to, send him off, and I'm sure he'll end up with some team next year in some platoon or backup role. He'll probably have 1 or 2 years left in the major leagues, but he's been a great Giant, and let's see him go out just getting the regular playing time because they owe it to him at this point. They're already paying him a shit ton of money, as a thank you for, 12 and 14. So they got nowhere to go this year, so might as well play him, get his ABs, and then, hopefully that turns into a contract for him somewhere else next year. So I think the Giants owe it to him for sure. But, looking at, again, the offensive stats in the National League, the Giants are 10th actually in average, so not at the very bottom. But, of course, the teams below them are the Marlins, Diamondbacks, which is a little surprising, Mets,
Wow.
Phillies, and then Padres. But the Diamondbacks have 150 home runs. The Giants only have 122. The Diamondbacks slugging is 400. The Giants are 377. And if you look at OPS as a whole, the Giants are third from the bottom, just ahead of the Padres and Marlins. Everyone else is above them. Slugging is the same thing, third from the bottom, again ahead of the Padres and Marlins. Home runs, second from last, only 7 ahead of the Marlins. They're even behind the Padres in home runs. And the
Wow.
Padres play in a pitcher park, So it's like, yeah, hitting is absolutely number one as far as the problem the Giants have been facing, and they're third from the bottom in runs scored at 549, just ahead of the Padres at 535 and the Marlins at 521. And the Padres and the Marlins are so far behind the Giants in terms of their record because their pitching is so much worse than the Giants. Which, again, speaks volumes about the Giants' pitching has actually been okay this year. Not fantastic, but okay. The Giants had any
Thank you, Derek
if they were
Rodriguez.
average hitters, this year, they'd be right in the hunt of the wild card and the division. But that's the issue, man. That's going into the offseason. That's what we have to deal with.
Well, I mean, it's crazy. They're going to hit better at AT&T Park this season than they did at Coors Field. They shouldn't have better
That's
batting
weird.
stats. Yeah, I had it somewhere. Where'd it go? They shouldn't be batting better at the best. You know what I mean? They shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's something was just wrong there. I don't know how you fix hitting like that, and I think that's why they're giving guys like Shaw a shot because what the hell? One of
Yeah,
these
what the hell?
balls is going to be a 3-run shot, and you need a Dave Kingman every once in a while.
So before we get to the end of the podcast here, I just wanted to talk about the playoff picture. We've never really talked about that before. I know this is a Giants podcast, but the Giants are out of it. So with, roughly 3 weeks or 3+ weeks left to go in the season, I think it's kind of interesting to look at what the playoff picture is going to look like. So let's go ahead and look at it. In the National League, of course, with the West, you have the Rockies 1.5 games ahead of the Dodgers and 2 games ahead of the Diamondbacks. You have the Cubs 4 games ahead of the Brewers and 4.5 ahead of the Cardinals. The East, the Braves are 3 games up on the Phillies. In the American League, you have Boston 9.5 up on the Yankees, so Boston's clearly going to win the East. Cleveland is a 16-game lead on the Twins, going to be the Central champions. Houston's got a 3.5-game lead on the A's, most likely, can't guarantee it yet. Houston's going to win the West. So kind of the division winners in the American League, I think, are fairly set. In the National League, I think the Cubs are certainly going to win it. I think the Braves are probably going to win it. They've lost 3 in a row, but they've still got a 3-game lead on the Phillies. As far as the wild card is concerned, we got the Yankees and the A's, 5.5 games up on Seattle. So to me, the American League is fairly set. It's going to be Boston, Cleveland, Houston, and then the Yankees and Oakland. So there's really not too much controversy, or I don't think anything's going to change really there. I mean, it's going to have to be one of those like 2010 San Diego Padres losing 10 in a row, for the Giants to have a chance at winning the West kind of thing. I don't see that happening. So I think those 5 teams are pretty much in. The National League, we got Atlanta, the Cubs, and Colorado leading their divisions. Milwaukee and St. Louis currently hold the 2 wild card spots, with the Dodgers 2 games back, Arizona 2.5, and Philadelphia 4.5. There's a little bit of play there, but what are you thinking? I mean, as far as the East, you pretty much giving it to the Braves. Do you see them kind of breaking down? I don't either. Philly just doesn't seem like the team that has enough to overtake them at this point.
Well, Philly and the Braves play 7 of their final 10 games of the season against each other.
That's right. Yeah.
And Atlanta has to play Arizona this weekend, and then they go to San Francisco. And before they play Philly those 7 times, they have to play St. Louis, who is also in the playoff race, because like everybody in the National League's in the playoff race at the moment, but the Giants. So I think Philly's got a chance to overtake the Braves if they win the head-to-heads. You kind of stay afloat, and you got to win the head-to-heads. I think the Cubs are going to win the Central. I think the Cubs are the best team in the National League. They're the most put together. They're the deepest. Their offense, when it's clicking, is the best, and they've got really good starting pitching and a good bullpen. And Madden's been there, done that, and they've been there, done that. I think the Brewers and Cardinals will probably end up in the wild card against each other. Brewers are a tough team. We'll see that this weekend watching Giants games. They're very deep. They've got Lorenzo Cain, Christian Yelich. They just got Curtis Granderson in a trade. Ryan Braun, Jesus Aguilar. The list goes deeper. I know it does because I've been watching them. So I think the Brewers and Cardinals will probably end up playing for the wild card, and then the winner of that will play the Cubs. And I think whoever comes out of the West, I'm leaning towards the Dodgers coming out of the West because I think they have the easiest schedule. Arizona and Colorado both play tough teams, but the Dodgers, they just finished with the Mets, but then again, they lost 2 out of 3. They play Cincinnati, they play San Diego, and they play the Giants. They also play St. Louis and Colorado and Arizona. All those teams get to play each other. I think the Dodgers are still going to win the West, and I think the 2 Central teams will be fighting for it.
Well, Major League Baseball.
I don't know who's going to win the East.
Major League Baseball, of course, has their postseason predictions. They have a little algorithm that they put here on their website, which is fun to look at because you look at the projections throughout the entire year with this line scatter plot graph or whatever. And even though the Dodgers are 1.5 games back of the Rockies right now, and of course Arizona is a half game back of the Dodgers right now, Major League Baseball, whatever algorithm they use, is still predicted to win the West with a 77.6% chance, followed by Colorado at a 48.2%. So yeah, you kind of go in line.
The numbers back me up. Wow.
The numbers back you up in Arizona at only 24%, which is incredible to me.
That's the order I would have gone into. I have all 3 schedules screenshot on my phone. I was going to put a tweet out about it, and I was looking at all of them, and I was like, I can see Colorado winning it. Then I looked at the Dodgers schedule, and I was like, no, I think the Dodgers are going to be able to do it. As long as they win
1.5 games
2 out of 3.
Is nothing.
Yeah, it really isn't much. And you win 2 out of 3 against the team you're chasing at home. You're a half game back. It gets made up somewhere. You're right there in it. So I think the Dodgers end up coming away with it, which sucks.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't happen. In the East, their algorithm has the Braves at a 69.8% chance of winning. That's the postseason percentage, actually, but that's for winning the East. And then followed by Philly at 31.2, and then Washington is still listed at 2.1, which is, I guess, possible, but I would put it under 2.1, which is kind of weird. Yeah, like I said, the Dodgers are 77.6. When you look at the NL wild card, this is where things kind of change. You obviously have the Cubs. Their postseason percentage is 99.7, with the wild card being 10.7, meaning they think, of course, most of that 99.7 is coming from the division winning, right? Milwaukee at a 75% chance of winning the wild card, and that means 82.9% chance of making the postseason. The Dodgers, like I said, 77.6% of making the postseason. Atlanta, 69.8%. St. Louis, 64% actually. But most of that is in the wild card chance, which they put at 61.1%. Colorado at 48.2% with the wild card at 21%. Philly at 31% winning. The East, only 1.9% making the wild card. And it goes down from there with Arizona at 24%. And most of that is 13.5 making the wild card. And then after that, everything's in single or 0 digits. So I think that's kind of the playoff picture right now. Nothing surprising, I'd say, at this point. Nothing is going to be shocking unless, again, one of these division leaders loses 10 in a row. So
yeah, well, St. Louis, I got to tell you, St. Louis coming back from the dead after firing Matheny, that's kind of interesting. So if they make the wild card, that's I mean, they just re-signed the guy for like a 3-year contract, took the interim label off him. Schilt, I believe his name is. So that's the one surprise for me is I didn't think they'd bounce back.
Right.
So I thought that, maybe the West second place would be playing for the wild card against the Brewers, because I think the Brewers are a good team. They just happen to be in the Cubs division.
Yeah, Yelich is fighting for MVP this year. I think he's been that good.
Yeah, absolutely. If the Brewers and the Cubs face each other in the first round of the playoffs, that's going to be a tough series for Chicago.
Oh, no doubt. All right, so as far as injuries, we talked about, Posey, of course, going under the knife, Duggar going under the knife. Shark officially was moved to the 60-day DL. His shoulder problems just lingered, and they just shut him down for the year. So he's still on the payroll for another couple of years. So the Giants really need to rely on this guy for the next 2 years, and I just don't know if that's going to happen. He's never been injured his entire life. He was also a horse, just like Matt Cain, but he's just been bitten by the injury bug. It sucks, but it is what it is. They're paying a lot of money for a guy who didn't pitch much this year, and when he did pitch, his ERA was over 6. So not so good, but that roster move made room for Avellino to come up on the roster.
Yeah, so they can protect him. I don't know what that does for Smarsh after the year, but that's what it is for right now.
As far as who's hot, not a whole lot, to be honest. We got Slater, of course. He's been playing well, 8 for his last 21. That's a 381 clip over his last 6 games. And then you got Garcia, of course, at 4 for his last 8 with 2 bombs, which is fantastic. I mean, this is a guy who's a career 233 hitter in the minor leagues.
Yeah, he wasn't like a bomber or anything.
No, he wasn't a bomber at all, and he's already got 2 major league bombs, and he's hitting 500. So clearly that's going to cool off, and if he ever plays again in the major leagues, because that's going to be a tough call. We'll see what happens, because this offseason you're still going to have Posey catching next year. Because we have at least another year with Posey behind the dish before Joey Bart is called up. And then, Nick Hundley was signed to a 1-year contract. So he's been valuable for the Giants. So I tell you, he's like 26th in WAR in in Major League catchers this year, and that's as a backup. Wow. So, I mean, he's been very, very valuable to the Giants. And so I think he might deserve another 1-year contract if the Giants can afford him. He might have other suitors, of course. So I'm sure we'll see Garcia again in the future. If they don't sign Hundley, then Garcia probably is the next logical backup for Posey, because I don't see anyone else right now in the system. I don't know if you do.
No,
they could sign another free agent, of course, but
it's fun to watch Garcia get his chance to do stuff in September. I hope he gets a few more starts.
And then D-Rod, man, I just like every week we have him in the Who's Hot. He's incredible. He has just been so consistently good for the Giants this year, and he's been one of the diamonds in the rough. There's no doubt about it. He's a guy he's been a bit of a journeyman, and no one really expected these kinds of performances from him, but he really has. I think he might have figured it out. I don't expect him next year to pitch a full season and have a sub-3 ERA. I don't. I don't see that, because there's so many of these Giants prospects that have come up over the years that have these flashes that you think, oh, he's the next Bumgarner, he's the next Kane, he's the next Lincecum, and it never happens. But I'd say out of all of that kind of last 8 years of those guys coming up, I think he might have the best chance of those guys.
I really think he does have the stuff. His last start against Colorado, he got 15 swing and misses, and it's the most he's had in a game this season. And he also said this is the first time he's ever pitched in September. So he's already pushing his arm to a limit that it hasn't been before to try to stretch himself out for next year. I don't know. He might really be a good one. I am salivating at Bumgarner and Rodriguez at the top of the rotation next year. Like he's been the find, because they can handle the Cueto blow because of Derek Rodriguez. Yeah. And I love it. I had a stat. He gave up 3 runs the other night, and it was the first time he'd given up more than 2 runs since June against Miami, and even that one was 3 runs. The kid's only given up more than 3 runs once this year. 5 runs against Washington. It's just phenomenal to watch. He's always on the Who's Hot list.
Yeah, we plug him in every week in our notes, by the way. He's just there. We copy the show notes from the previous week, and it's like, oh yeah, Derek Rodriguez is still there. We're not gonna erase him. All right, who's not? Why don't you take this one? Because I love your little second line here.
Well, I mean, Belt is 4 for his last 27, the last 9 games, 11 strikeouts and no home runs, and then under that, I mean, they're all struggling. I went looking for somebody that was hitting well, and even Slater's felt fudged because all he hit was singles. Like, none of these guys over the last few days. Longoria is hitting 273 over the last 7 days, but they're all struggling. Panic's at 250, Belt's at 211, Gorky's 158 the last 7 days, Alan Hansen 176, even Hundley 200, Blanco 182 since he's come back. Like, Garcia was the only one, you know? Like, they're all struggling. None of these guys are putting the ball in play at the times that it's needed. They all just keep getting on base, and then nobody knocks them in. It's ridiculous. They had 8 hits the other night and 2 runs, 9 hits last night and 3 runs. They're all struggling. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know if it's a hitting coach situation or just you need better hitters. I think you need better hitters.
Better hitters, number one. That's for sure. I think you or I, if we went to the Astros and you or I were the hitting coach, I would say their average isn't going to dip precipitously. It's still going to be better than the Giants.
Still going to hit, yep.
They could have a chicken for the hitting coach, and it would still be better than the Giants.
Nice.
So, yeah, talent number one, no doubt about it. All right, so coming up, the Giants have 3 in Milwaukee. Then they come back home for 3 against Atlanta and then 3 against Colorado. We should be recording on Monday, so we'll review the Brewers series. And it's going to be a little, short break in between. But, we love talking Giants even when they're not doing so well. So we'll see where the playoff picture is at that point. We'll talk a little bit about that. But, yeah, other than that, give us a follow on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow us collectively at TortureCast or individually at ChadK21 for myself at 2 Out Hits. That's with the number 2 for Eric. We also have our podcasts, as you're listening to right now. You don't need to be told where it's at, but in case you want to try a different platform, we do have Stitcher, we have Podbean, Podomatic, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube. It's kind of all over the place.
Spotify.
Spotify, exactly. You can get it on Downcast and all these other platforms. So we're very, very, very easy to find. So you got anything to pimp recently,
No,
Eric?
not at all.
Nope.
No, nothing to pimp. I just think the Brewers series coming up, I think the Giants are going to hit the crap out of the ball the next few days, and we could have some entertaining baseball games.
All right. We can also check us out at TortureCast.com. We haven't had a lot of blogs lately. Obviously, we do post a lot of stuff there. A lot of stuff, though, on Facebook, so check it out. Other than that, that'll do it for episode 152 of the TortureCast. You can check us out on Monday for episode 153. It sucks recording this time of year when the Giants are not in the playoffs, because this is the first time we've had back-to-back years where the Giants are out of it. We recorded, we started this podcast in 2011, and even though that was not a successful season, we did record in 2012 and 2014, and those were fun years. And even 2016, at least we were talking about playoffs, and there was some fun stuff to talk about. So shows you that we do love this team. We're not going to quit on them, even if they sink to the level of the Padres next year. Oh my God, I hope not. But look what they did last year, so that's okay. All right, well, for Eric, this is Chad signing off, and we'll see you next time. Boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at TortureCast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.